Track 31. Carol.
The most important moment in my life was, the day I met Owen. An old friend was having a party, but the weather was so bad that I nearly didn't bother going. Just think, if I'd stayed at home, I wouldn't have met my husband. Anyway, my friend introduced me to Owen and we got on really well. He was only in London for a few days. He's American, you see. And he was supposed to fly back to Boston the following day. But the next morning, Owen called me to say that Heathrow Airport was closed because of ice and snow. He'd have flown home that day if the weather hadn't been so bad. Anyway, he invited me out for lunch and we got to know each other a bit better. He flew home the next day, but by that time we were already madly in love. We got married 2 years later, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Anthony.
For me, probably the biggest turning point in my life was when I lost my job. I was working for an advertising agency, but they got into financial trouble and had to get rid of some people, including me. I got quite depressed at first, but I was getting fed up with working for a big agency anyway, so I decided to start my own online design company. If I hadn't lost my job, I wouldn't have started my own business, but it's been really successful. I've always fancied working from home, and so I moved to the country and bought a nice little cottage. I wouldn't have left London if I'd stayed with the ad agency. I don't get as much money as I used to, but I'm much happier than I was then.
Michelle.
Well, for me, it's probably the day I won my first race. When I was a kid, I used to get into trouble a lot at school, and the only thing I enjoyed was running, which I was always quite good at. Then, one day, my dad took me to the local athletics club. When we got there, I found out that he'd entered me for the 400 metres. I was really nervous, but I won by over 2 seconds. That was the turning point for me. If I hadn't won that race, I'd never have become a serious athlete. I started training really hard, and 3 years later, I managed to get into the British youth athletics team. I've got better as I've got older, and now I want to compete in the next Olympics. So yeah, running's changed my life. If I hadn't started doing this, I'd have got into a lot more trouble. I'm sure of that.